Traditions are a big part of the holiday season for many, and that goes for those of us here at Weather World as well. In fact, one of our favorite traditions takes place during this week every year, and it combines our love of food with our love of the weather. That's right. The classic children's tale, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, has been told on Weather World for many decades. The book was first published in 1978. It was written by Judy Barrett, and the illustrations were drawn by Ron Barrett. And the producers of Weather World, back in the middle 1980s when Weather World was in its infancy, were at WPSX TV, and they decided it would be fun to bring this book to life. So they got permission from the publishers, and they painstakingly took video of all the pages they chose to use, and they had to shorten it a bit because of TV time constraints. Bill Hughes was the man who took the time to do that, and then he combined that with the booming voice of the very talented Asa Berlin, who served as the narrator, and that's the story of the classic tale we've been telling you for years. Well, in the fall of 2020, one of our devoted viewers, Brian Troutman of Philadelphia, decided that the story needed a bit of an update. So he went out, bought a copy of the book, unbound it, got high-resolution scans of all the pages we used, and re-edited the story to the original audio. He sent it to us on December 24th, 2020, and what an incredible Christmas gift that was. We thank Brian for taking the time to do that and for preserving the legacy of the late Bill Hughes and Asa Berlin as well. So now we're going to show you that version. We're taking you to the land of chew and swallow, where the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
The strangest weather I ever had was in a town called Chew and Swallow. In most ways, it was like any other town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything everyone ate came from the sky. Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained rain, it never snowed snow, and it never just blew wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they could even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way they'd always be prepared for any kind of weather. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny-side eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time, it rained milk afterward. For lunch one day, frankfurters, ready in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles an hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potato were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. Life for the townspeople was delicious, until the weather took a turn for the worse. One day, there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day, there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day, there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day, there was a pea-soup fog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of their meal that got stuck in the fog. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomachache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There was seeds and pulp everywhere. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for the new land. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in the new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again. And nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it.